The Lonely Clock on the Wall by Pat Zelenka. Read by the author. The clock's only job had been to tell the time. And yet, now it was relegated just to sit on the wall. Once, the clock had been the focus of all the workers. Everyone had watched it all day, checking to see how close it was to the end of their shift, and the clock had been proud, beyond proud actually, to show them the time. But eventually, the batteries in the clock began to fade away, and the clock began to slow. The clock was sure that someone who wanted to know the time, the real time, the accurate time, would surely come along and change the batteries that helped the clock to tell the time. But no one came. And so hours turned into days, days into weeks, weeks into months, and months into a year. No one ever came. Everyone stopped looking at the clock. The clock did not have a voice, and it could not beseech anyone to help it. The clock wanted to cry out. The clock wanted to make this nightmare stop. The clock wanted to be useful again. But no one came. As time went on, the dust began to settle and build on the clock. No one came to clean the clock anymore, to wipe it down, to keep its face clear for people to be able to see the time. And so eventually, no one could even see the face of the clock for all the grime. Slowly, long after the batteries had died, they began to leak. The posts they attached to, which provided energy to the clock, began to erode. The clock, knowing its time was ending, both figuratively and literally, began to accept the idea of death, its concept, and its eventuality. The clock was equally afraid and resentful. For why had the clock been abandoned? Why had the clock been ignored? Why had the clock been disregarded? The clock did not know. The clock was sure it had been a good clock, and an honest clock, but apparently that had not been enough. Apparently that had not satisfied anyone. Apparently no one felt anything for the clock, and no one cared if the clock died. This hurt the clock bitterly, but there was nothing to be done. Despite all of its good work, those in charge were going to allow the clock to die. Was this through ignorance? Was this through cruelty? As the clock died, it could see snapshots of the people that it had once served as the clock came in and out of consciousness. All of them walked right by, and in fact, a brand new clock was hung not far from the old clock. This was the final insult that murdered the old clock. Long after the clock had lost consciousness and died, a man with a ladder came. He put the ladder against the wall, climbed up, took the clock off the wall, and came back down the ladder. The man, with the clock in hand, went to a garbage can and dropped the old clock inside. From this garbage can, the clock was taken to a large dumpster, where it was crushed, along with all the other garbage, and forgotten. What was left of the carcass of the clock ended its days in a landfill. No one thought of the clock's tears. No one thought of the clock's hurt and pain. No one gave a second thought to the clock. And so there it rotted and disappeared from memory. The new clock, thinking itself to be there forever, stayed awake 24/7, telling the time and happily greeting everyone who came into work. Of course, eventually, everything is replaced. All old things are forgotten, and all the new clocks will continue to come to be hung on the wall.